Let's have a look at this whisper track right here, and see what that thing does for us.
Where are we in the song?
It's the next section over, I think. Yeah. This section right here. Example of the whisper track right there. I pushed it up a little bit. It wasn't that loud.
It's not that loud in the actual
mix,
mix,
but
yeah.
so you can tell what that does. A quick look at how we're treating it. We don't want to listen to that whole thing in silence. Bring it on now. Funny sauce on there.
Yeah.
You boost at the high end a bunch and the mids a bit to really bring out those whisper frequencies. Compress the heck out of it. I'm quite certain of it. And then we have that same spreader on there again, a reverb, and a flanger. Is that a flanger or a phaser? Let's see. It's a flanger.
There you go.
So just to give it a little extra, a little extra something to bring it out a little bit more.
Well, what that does is, I mean, the whisper track gives, when people really go in, and you hear some tracks where people really line up their whisper tracks with their vocal tracks, where it's really completely, totally on, sometimes mine are off, but it really sounds like you get a better sounding pronunciation of all the words. There's a more of a sibilant vibe that you get that kind of makes things sound fatter, and or in this case, it can sound like a gang vocal or lots of people at the same time.
Or just bigger in general, and just change the timbre of it just ever so much to like make it pop out a little differently. To this is part of the hook. The bring it on now, and you're just emphasizing that.
Exactly. You can see it on the in the session that it's kind of used sparingly. It's two different. He says the whole thing, I think, 2 times.
Yeah.
So there you go. So that's the second time we hear that stop time section, and that's where you hear the orchestra really come through for the first time in this song.
In.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the orchestra a little bit. What I got. Let's just solo these suckers.
Yeah.
And let's see what that's all about.
So that sounds amazing because that's real instruments playing something. It sounds like the beginning of a James Bond movie.
Bows,
you hear the bows. You hear the. Sometimes you hear the breaths in the room of people before the taking the thing. You can hear all that stuff, and yeah, you hear the tapping of the bows sometimes on the cello. You can, it sounds cool, and it's big, and it sounds really cool alone, but we have to find a way.
Yeah, and it's really sad when we fade it out.
Right, because we haven't. Well, here's something that I end up doing often is I say I don't care how much money I spend on that orchestra. There's got to be a guitar lead solo part there, and that's got to be really loud.
And that's where that happens.
Yeah.
But let's look at what we did, how we treated these things, because when they came in, they sounded more orchestra-like and more polite. You know, they are used to. You know, they're used to like the TV world and like there's a politeness, lushness that you can afford when you're not up against distorted guitars.
Right.
You know, when you have so we had to boost it, and because the levels they brought were very conservative levels, like you were saying, they were very much not metal levels.
Yeah.
And so let's see what we have. These are all the same because this is an orchestra that was treated the same. Like all these stems were mixed as a whole and then just parsed out. So when I EQ'd them and compressed them, I pretty much do the same thing to all of them, kind of combined, to keep their balances intact, at least initially, until we decide that no, we really should have more strings here, or we need to bring out the brass in this section, or do whatever. And that's when the EQs start to change. But initially, it gets treated almost as a whole. Here we are, just boosting. This is a different EQs that BrainWorks stereo equalizer. Just boosting like 5 dB from 5K on up. So we're just adding a lot of high end to it. And this Neve EQ from Universal Audio. Very, very nice stuff. Again, boosting some more high ends and some warmth then at the bottom. Nothing extraordinary. This stuff sounds good. This is an orchestra that these people got $30,000 to make and create. It's not up to me to go ruin it completely.
Well, yeah, but still, their natural frequency. We have a mid-rangey kind of frequency that we have to kind of punch through and make sure it sticks in there.
Exactly. But what I'm trying to say is like this stuff sounds good. There's nothing for me to fix.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't have to go in and like, it's like, yeah, what do you guys do? I gotta like reverse like your bad decisions. Like these are like very much professionals that like send you an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So it's up to me to ruin it.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to us to make it sound worse somehow.
And so, I just EQ'd it and compressed it a little bit, but the point is I let the low end be where it is, and have the high end poke through more, because that's generally what we've been doing with all these attacks on the kicks and the crunch in the guitars, the cymbals, the attack in the bass and the vocal distortion and the lead guitars and all that stuff. That's what this thing is competing against, and in some instances, you truly just have to turn things off to make something else heard. Like, if you want to hear the orchestra loud, you can't have the same part being played by a lead guitar really loud.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one or the other. You can have them both the same, and then it's a mix, or one or the other being dominant to whichever degree. But those are the mixing decisions you make of your preference, and what you had decided was you wanted to build that.
Build the band, introduce the orchestra, let the orchestra take over, and then combine. Yeah.
And so that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah.
And
so
I
at the
think
end
it
of
worked
that
out pretty
thing,
well.
we had to make room for a lead guitar, and we can talk about that.
At the end of this section right there, right? That's
right there.
That's what you're talking about. So how do we get from there, from that into the lead guitar? It is simply by just turning it down and off to make space for the lead, which happens around here. At that point, there just was no room for finishing the orchestra. It was like.
But we've taken your attention away with this other piece, so.
Because something's taken over, and I think that's what goes on throughout the entire song. There's like that one thing that has your main attention, like the lead vocal, the lead guitar, the orchestra. It's always like the thing you latch on to that keeps the song going forward, keeps it interesting. All the other stuff around it is obviously necessary, and if that were to disappear, if you turned the kicks off all of a sudden or changed that all of a sudden, you're like, what the hell happened?
Right.
And so that you rely on that to be there, but you need the other things to keep that red thread through whatever it is you're going through, and those are the arrangement choices we make for this sort of thing.
Sure. What would you normally do with it? I mean, basically, my whole goal is make sure the lead guitar is loud, make sure it's heard, unless I suck at it. And turn that part down.
You know, here's the lead guitar. Let's see how we treated it to make this thing heard. It's it has some extra thing in there. Extra delay is what we're doing. The phaser that we're using in something. That's send 4. Oh, I guess we got a phaser on there.
Really?
All right. So we have, as you can see, we have 2 delay automation things going on. I guess we didn't want to have as much delay on the initial run into the solo. We didn't want to have as much delay on this solo as, well, I guess that doesn't matter. I guess we were just playing around with automating it, but ended up with that.
Normally what I'll ask for Ulrich, I'll ask of Ulrich from a lead guitar part is to warm it up again, to make the EQ curve listenable and warmer, and then loud with that warm thing.
Warm and loud.
Yeah.
What's not to like?
Yeah.
And we achieved that. You know, you need to bite through, you need to cut through with some of this high end. Looks like some boosting at 8K, and some more like mid-range bite that takes over the vocal frequency a little bit, because at this point you're like the vocal stopped and the lead guitar's taking over, so there's a little bit of a room to fill.
Right.
So there is that space because you're not going up against the vocal at that point. So we can use that, and the same thing with this one is there's a little bit of warmth added, a little bit of low end, and a lot of rides on this to make sure we hear the various runs of the guitar.
Okay.
Let's have a quick look at this. These are your vocal your guitar levels, your guitar rides. So here we come into it, and you can see how it just rides around.
And I'll do that often, you know, find a place to, it's like old 70s kind of style guitar playing stuff that I like, where you harmonize just a section, like Brian May would do it, or like, again, going back to 10cc, or doing like or even stuff like not too long ago, like old Jellyfish stuff or whatever. They would do cool kind of melodic solos that have cool, catchy little moments and stuff. And so, yeah, you see underneath that guitar, I think there may be a couple.
There's a harmony right here for it.
Right there.
That we probably treated very similarly, because they're in there.
Yeah.
And you could see that we had level changes going on for that to accommodate them coming in and not having too much lead guitar afterwards. So all of a sudden the lead guitar gets a little quieter to make room for the harmony guitars in there.
Right. Yes.
And
yes. So yeah, you'll see it's at a full volume. Yeah.
We have a high and a low harmony that come in there, and that's about that. Yeah. And then our next section.
Yeah.
Unless you have something else you want to add?
No, but that's pretty much it. That's the nature of a guitar solo, and that's kind of the trajectory that it takes on any given song. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so you are writing maybe a delay level in some places, and sometimes you're writing...
Obviously, the lead
level, part has to be up, and again,
Ulrich's
philosophy is that there's got to be something taking your attention each time.
Yeah.
To fill up the space of the thing that's lost.
It's nice to have like ear candy, where there's little things that you don't necessarily hear the first time you're listening to a song, or maybe not even to the 10th time that you go like, yeah, I never really noticed there was a whatever in there.
You know, that is the
nice,
coolest thing,
yeah. But those are not things that like hit you in the head with a hammer kind of things. Right. You know, they're just like, maybe it's just like the tiniest little synth part in the second verse to just give it a little, just so it's a little different from the first verse. So it's, you get a little extra.
That kind of stuff's all over the Galacticon record too. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of work on the mixing side to just put in those little Easter eggs kind of everywhere, where one part's phased, one part does this, one part does, because that's the cool stuff they did in the 70s, you know? That was fun ear candy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, go ahead. So at this point, it's funny because the song, if you're looking at the song as, this is something that I learned early on, and I didn't really care about song form. Song form is the ABBA.
Yeah,
but it's like, verse, bridge, chorus, verse, double chorus, you're out. Is kind of a thing that happens. And when in doubt, that seems to work. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, I don't care. I just want to make something worth listening to that's interesting. And if a part doesn't repeat or it's through composed, that's okay with me too, because I think that sometimes piques your interest and it's anti the normal thing. So in this case, the song analysis is the stop time part that's going to keep developing as we continue into a verse, and then a bridge that we never hear again into the chorus, and then a guitar solo over the verse, I guess. And then the bridge part we never hear again. And then we're into this long odyssey into the great unknown, the big cowboy riding off in the sunset moment of the whole piece. So let's check that out and see if there's some cool stuff to listen to, because after this solo, we're going to start hearing the orchestra come back, and they come in with a big, huge stab at the top of this section. So that section, I'd like to hear the guitar overdubs and the orchestra together, just to show kind of what's happening. Because there's a lot of stuff underneath there I recorded a lot of stuff, and it's present, it shows up a little bit, but there's a lot for the ear to listen to. And you'll see that underneath that, we've crammed it full of information. It's like, I used to describe Death Clock songs like you're packing a month's worth of clothing for a 2-day vacation, and you're sitting on the suitcase trying to make it close. And that's pretty much what we have here. It's not always like conservative and sparse. It is everything. Keep going. It's very excessive.
Yeah, I think we have all. Oh, this one, just in case.
Yeah.
Oh, what the heck. All right.
It's me. You can see, like, when I say my favorite band is Queen, you can tell I rip off the 3-part harmonies, the more of the voice-led harmonies that Brian May does, and then we have that with an orchestra, and it's there, and you've got the timpani, and you've got drama, and you've got something big happening. It's a very big moment.
And you could hear the fade in.
And you can hear the fade in. Those climbs in the guitars are just something I think it's, and more higher octaves are fading in as we get closer to the peak point.
And there's another guitar fade in moment really that happens at the end of the choruses.
Okay, yeah, let's listen to that really quickly.
Much of them there, but
right.
that tends to happen when you try to close that suitcase.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the overall feeling is big drama, huge, sweeping, epic, gigantic, as big as you can possibly get.
And sometimes the trick in mixing is that, like, you don't necessarily need to hear everything perfectly in a pristine way. because it needs to work together, and they need to, like, tracks need to complement each other. Like we could try to separate this stuff out more, but all of a sudden the sonics of it would suffer. The sounds would get thinner, and you really would carve out like really like narrow sounding guitars to like a narrow sounding orchestra, and it wouldn't sound good anymore. It started to sound separate and disjointed.
Right.
And so this stuff overlapping is what makes it work together and sound like a unit, like a full on like thing that actually plays together, even though it was completely separate in different parts of the continent.
It's crazy. It's there's only so much you can put into the thing, and before it turns into a blob of white noise, you know.
Yeah.
But so that's an idea. That's part of it. So let's play the rest of that out from that point, and let you hear kind of what the orchestra is doing, and if there are any extra guitar overdubs. I think there are some at the end. So let's just play orchestra and overdubs.
Well, now you tell me.
Yeah, now I tell you.
A lot of guitars.
There are a lot of guitars. That's. Finish. Those harmonized guitars had to be. There's a lot of mixing that's going on with those higher harmonized guitars at the very end. Because I know at the last, which is part of the. We're quoting directly from the ending of the actual rock opera.
Yeah.
Where there are two twin guitarists standing in outer, basically their images projected in outer space, playing that part together, So that's important to have that sound be very loud and crossfade with the orchestra.
And we had a lot of orchestra up to that point.
Yes.
Now, so it's time for the guitars.
Time for the guitars to kind of say goodbye. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of stuff, I think the orchestra's doing a lot of its own work, and through Bear's really great arranging and all those tricks and those glissandos and those counter melodies that you hear. That's just stuff that he added to make this thing even cooler, and that bam, ba, 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 bam, bam, like all that cool stuff is really neat. And it's all there. So if you listen to the track again, you will hear all those parts poke out through vocals, through rhythm guitars, through bass, and all that stuff. So it's all present, and it ends up being a very cool combination of all that stuff.
Absolutely. There's one thing I want to touch on about like making the whole thing sound as a unit.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like to put plugins onto individual tracks, but like you can save a lot of processing power by having parallel effects, where you're sending them off a send as opposed to put them in as an insert. And there's two advantages to that. One of them is you save processing power in the computer, and the other one is you can actually tie things together if you have like the snare use the same reverb as the vocal. That gives it like the two things are in the same space. The same thing with using that same widener for the guitar and the vocals, for instance. It just starts gluing things together because you actually are using the same effect. And frankly, it's to me that's better, especially since that's how we used to do things. We didn't have 14 reverbs to put
Yeah,
on
one
14 different
reverb
tracks.
tank
We had one or two
in Detroit,
reverbs.
Motown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to use that. Everything had to be sent down to
You
that.
had the chamber,
Yeah.
you know. And the same thing like with de-essers, for instance. You had 4 de-essers and 8 tracks of vocals. Decision-making time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What are you going to do? And so, like, in some ways, we're fortunate to be able to use plugins and use 8 de-essers if we need them. On the other hand, we're less creative because of that, because we don't have like limitations anymore. So making these decisions and giving yourself some limitations and like moving on with that, you're actually more creative and you come up with a more unique thing. Like if you have like fewer plugins too,
Yeah.
you're not like searching through all the plugins to find like the perfect one.
Right.
You know, like
which will take up time. And,
yeah.
Well, I think.
And you can, if you don't find what you're looking for, then you have to go explore. And that's also when like presets come in, when you have, you know, like you're kind of stuck with the sound, you don't know how to fit it in, or like you're looking, it's just like a verse is not right, and you need some kind of vibe on the vocals or something. You just go like, use a plugin and sail through some presets and to see if something like jars your imagination, and just like, oh yeah, you know, maybe it needs a flanger, and then either use that preset and tweak it, or build your own thing to it, or whatever. So, you know, anything to again get the creativity going if you need to, instead of working yourself into a corner or
Yeah.
you know,
Well, to echo
getting
that,
stuck.
I was saying something similar earlier, which is that it's better to have limitations than to have options. If we have every option to everything, we're not going to do it. We're going to become complacent and confused and just look at the floor for a while like, I don't know what to do. There's too many options. It's really important, like I was saying, the Lars von Trier Dogma 95. You only are allowed to use this reverb, this EQ, and the compressor that's in that EQ, and you have to make a record. You'd probably squeeze everything out of it and make everything sound as great as you possibly could, as opposed to using bits and pieces from things you're not very familiar with.
And taking 7 years to make a record.
It would take you'd end up with Chinese democracy.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, limitations are really important, and you know what else is really important? A deadline, and that's what we had too. And budget constraints and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But too much stuff is too much stuff, and I think that's an interesting philosophy, that using different instruments and throwing them into the same send and using the same reverb or something, well, somehow they will influence that reverb. Both of those different sounds will influence it, and it will sound like it's coming from the same place. Where here is a thing where everybody was in a different room, and it's not. And I was in a different room playing guitar than I was in when I was singing, and that was in a different place, and the orchestra was in a different place, and you know, everything in Gene was in a different place. But you have to make it all sound like they were in the same place, playing together.
And that's actually part of why I chose to not use it. If you notice that the orchestra does not have my favorite go-to plugin on it. I actually purposely made like approach that differently, because I wanted it to. I didn't want it to obviously sound like it's from a different place, but somehow or another, I figured that if I use different plugins for it, I'll have a different tonality to it that works. That doesn't give me the same build-up as the other section, as the metal portion of the program.
Right.
So I'll be able to, like, it'll fit in, it'll just poke through in a different way,
right,
because I'm using different plugins on it.
Yeah. So that's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else in there that we. I mean, you see those kind of simple crossfades of those guitars that slowly. What I usually do is I take the fade like a thing, and I just drag it across the entire wave, and it'll slowly just get louder and slowly build, and you don't know that it's happening, but all of a sudden it's influencing the song, and an extra kind of, the stakes are raising a little bit musically, and something is happening when I have a 6-part guitar harmony slowly building, and it's a cool buzzy sound that happens on the kind of exteriors of the song while all the brass and stuff is really doing this. You hear this buzzy guitar frequency slowly getting bigger and closer to you. So that's part of an arranging tool that I will kind of pre-mix and give to Ulrich, and then you'll do a submix of the guitar orchestra by itself oftentimes.
Yeah, I do that.
And you'll hear how things blend in.